Acts chapter 6. And in those days, when the taught ones were increasing, there arose a grumbling against the Hebrews by the Hellenists, because their widows were overlooked in the daily serving. So the 12 summoned the group of the taught ones and said, "It is not pleasing for us to leave the world of Elohim and serve tables. Therefore, brothers, seek out from among you 7 men who are known to be filled with the set-apart spirit and wisdom, whom we shall appoint for this duty. But we shall give ourselves continually to prayer and to serving the word." And the word pleased the entire group. And they chose Stephanos, a man filled with belief and the set-apart spirit, and Philip, and Prochorus, and Nicanor, and Timon, and Parmenas, and Nicolaus, a convert from Antioch, whom they set before the emissaries. And when they had prayed, they laid hands on them. And the word of Elohim spread, and the number of taught ones increased greatly in Jerusalem, and a great many of the priests were obedient to the belief. And Stephanos, filled with belief and power, did great wonders and signs among the people. But some of those of the so-called congregation of the freedmen, Cyrenians, Alexandrians, and those from Cilicia and Asia rose up, disputing with Stephanos. But they were unable to resist the wisdom and the spirit by which he spoke. Then they instigated men to say, "We have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moshe and Elohim." And they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes. So they came upon him, seized him, and brought him to the council. And they set up false witnesses, who said, "This man does not cease to speak blasphemous words against this set-apart place and the Torah. For we have heard him saying that this Yeshua of Nazareth shall overthrow this place and change the institutes which Moshe delivered unto us." And all who sat in the council, looking steadily at him, saw his face was like the face of a heavenly messenger. And chapter 7, and the high priest said, "Is this so?" And he replied, "Men, brothers, and fathers, listen. The Elohim of esteem appeared to our father, Abraham, when he was in Aram Naharaim, before he dwelt in Haran, and said to him, 'Come out of your land and from your relatives, and come here into a land that I show you.' Then he came out of the land of the Kasdim and dwelt in Haran. And from there, after the death of his father, he removed him to his land in which you now dwell. And he gave him no inheritance in it, not a foot of it. But he promised to give it to him for a possession, and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. And Elohim spoke in this way, that his seed would be sojourning in a foreign land, and that they would be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. And the nation to whom they shall be enslaved I shall judge, said Elohim, and after that they shall come out and serve me in this place. And he gave him the covenant of the circumcision. And so he brought forth Yitzhak, and circumcised him on the 8th day. And Yitzhak brought forth Jacob, and Jacob brought forth the 12 ancestors. And the ancestors, becoming jealous, sold Joseph into Mitzrayim. But Elohim was with him, and delivered him out of all his afflictions, and gave him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim. And he appointed him governor over Mitzrayim and all his house. Then a scarcity of food and great distress came over all the land of Mitzrayim and Canaan. Our fathers found no food. But Jacob heard that there was grain. There was grain in Mitzrayim. And he sent out our fathers the first time And at the second time Joseph was made known to his brothers, and Joseph's race became known to the Pharaoh. And Joseph went and called his father, Jacob, and all his relatives to him, 75 people. And Jacob went down to Mitzrayim and died, he and our fathers. And they were brought over to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abram bought for a price of silver from the sons of Hamor, the fathers of Shechem. But as the time of the promise drew near, which Elohim had sworn to Abraham, the people increased and multiplied in Mitzrayim until another sovereign arose who did not know Joseph. Having dealt treacherously with our race, this one mistreated our fathers, making them expose their babies so that they should not live. At that time Moshe was born, and he was well-pleasing to Elohim, and he was reared 3 months in the house of his father. But when he was exposed, the daughter of Pharaoh took him up and reared him as her own son. And Moshe was instructed in all the wisdom of the Mitzrites, and was mighty in words and works. And when he was 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brothers, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them being wronged, he defended and revenged him who was oppressed, smiting the Mitzrite. And he thought that his brothers would have understood that Elohim would give deliverance to them by his hand. But they did not understand. And the next day he appeared to 2 of them as they were fighting, and urged them to peace, saying, Men, you are brothers. Why do you wrong one another? But he who was wronging his neighbor pushed him away, saying, Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? Do you wish to kill me as you killed the Mitzrite yesterday? And at this saying, Moshe fled and became a sojourner in the land of Midian, where he fathered 2 sons. And after 40 years were completed, a messenger of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire in a bush in the wilderness of Mount Sinai. And Moshe, seeing it, marveled at the sight, and coming near to look, the voice of Yahweh came to him, saying, I am the Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Moshe trembled and did not have the courage to look, but Yahweh said to him, Take your sandals off your feet, for this place where you stand is a set-apart ground. I have certainly seen the evil treatment of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their groaning, and have come down to deliver them. And now come, let me send you to Mitzrayim. This Moshe whom they had refused, saying, Who made you a ruler and a judge? This one Elohim sent to be a ruler and deliverer by the hand of the messenger who appeared to him in the bush. This one led them out after he had done wonders and signs in the land of Mitzrayim, and in the Red Sea, and in the wilderness 40 years. This is the Moshe who said to the children of Israel, Yahweh your Elohim shall raise up for you a prophet like me from your brothers. Him you shall hear. This is he who was in the assembly in the wilderness with the messenger who spoke to him on Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who received the living words to give to us, and to whom our fathers would not become obedient, but thrust away. And in their hearts they turned back to Mitzrayim, saying to Aaron, Make us mighty ones to go before us. For this Moshe who led us out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. Excuse me. And they made a calf in those days, and brought an offering to the idol, and were rejoicing in the works of their own hands. So Elohim turned and gave them up to worship the host of the heaven, as it has been written in the book of the prophets. Did you bring slaughtered beasts and offerings unto me during 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? And you took up the tent of Molech and the star of your mighty one, Kinun, images which you made to bow before them. Therefore I shall remove you beyond Babel. The tent of witness was with our fathers in the wilderness as he appointed, instructing Moshe to make it according to the pattern that he had seen, which our fathers, having received it in turn, also brought with Yehoshua into the land possessed by the nations whom Elohim drove out before the face of our fathers until the days of David, who found favor before Elohim and asked to find a dwelling for the Elohim of Jacob. But Shlomo built him a house. However, the Most High does not dwell in dwellings made with hands, as the prophet says. The heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house shall you build for me, says Yahweh, or what is the place of my rest? Has my hand not made all these? You stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, you always resist the set-apart spirit, as your fathers did. You also do. Which of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? And they killed those who before announced the coming of the righteous one, of whom you now have become the betrayers and murderers, who received the Torah as it was ordained by messengers, but did not watch over it. And hearing this, they were cut to the hearts and gnashed the teeth at him. But he, being filled with the set-apart spirit, looked steadily into the heaven and saw the esteem of Elohim and Yeshua standing at the right hand of Elohim. And he said, Look, I see the heavens opened and the son of Adam standing at the right hand of Elohim. And crying out with a loud voice, they stopped their ears and rushed upon him with one mind, and threw him out of the city and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their garments at the feet of young men named Shaul. And they were stoning Stephanos as he was calling and saying, Master Yeshua, receive my spirit. And kneeling down, he cried out with a loud voice, Master, do not hold this sin against them. And having said this, he fell asleep. Chapter 8. And Shaul was giving approval to his death. And on that day there was a great persecution against the assembly, which was at Jerusalem. And they were all scattered throughout the countries of the Yehuda and Shomeron, except the emissaries. And dedicated men buried Stephanos and made great lamentations over him. But Shaul was ravaging the assembly, entering every house and dragging off men and women, putting them in prison. Then those who had been scattered went everywhere, bringing the good news, the word. And going down to the city of Shomeron, Philip proclaimed Messiah to them. And the crowds with one mind heeded what Philip said, hearing and seeing the miracles which he did. For unclean spirits came out of many who were possessed, crying with a loud voice, and many who were paralyzed and lame were healed. And there came to be great joy in that city. Now there was a certain man called Shimon, who formerly was practicing magic in the city and astonishing the people of Shomeron, claiming to be someone great, to whom they all were giving heed, from the least to the greatest, saying, This one is the power of Elohim, which is great. And they were giving heed to him, because for a long time he had amazed them with his magic. And when they believed Philip, as he brought the good news about the reign of Elohim and the name of Yeshua Messiah, both men and women were immersed. And Shimon himself also believed, and when he was immersed, he continued with Philip and was amazed, seeing the miracles and signs which took place. And when the emissaries who were at Jerusalem heard that Shomeron had received the word of Elohim, they sent Kepha and Yohanan to them, who, when they had come down, prayed for them to receive the set-apart spirit. For he had not yet fallen on any of them, but they had only been immersed in the name of the Master Yeshua. Then they laid hands on them, and they received the set-apart spirit. And Shimon, seeing that through the laying on of the hands of the emissaries the set-apart spirit was given, he offered them money, saying, "Give me this authority too, so that anyone I lay hands on shall receive the set-apart spirit." But Kepha said to him, "Let your silver perish with you, because you thought to buy the gift of Elohim through money. You have neither part nor lot in this matter, for your heart is not right before Elohim. Repent therefore of this evil of yours, and plead with Elohim to forgive you the intention of your heart, for I see that you are poisoned by bitterness and bound by unrighteousness." But Shimon answering said, "Plead with the master for me, so that none of what you had said shall come upon me." Then after they earnestly witnessed and spoken the word of Yahweh, they returned to Jerusalem, bringing the good news in many villages of the Shomeronium. But a messenger of Yahweh spoke to Philip, saying, "Arise and go toward the south, along the way which goes down from Jerusalem to Azah. This is desert." And he arose and went, and saw a man of Cush, a eunuch of great authority under Kandake, the sovereigness of the Cushites, who was in charge of all her treasury, and had come to Jerusalem to worship, and was returning, and sitting in his chariot he was reading the prophet Yeshayahu. And the Spirit said to Philip, "Go near and join him in that chariot." And running up, Philip heard him reading the prophet Yeshayahu, and said, "Do you know what you are reading?" And he said, "How am I able, unless someone guides me?" And he called Philip near to come up and sit with him. And the passage of the scripture which was reading was this: "He was led as a sheep to slaughter, and like a lamb silent before its shearer, so he opened not his mouth. In his humiliation he was deprived of right ruling, and who shall declare his generation? Because his life was taken from the earth." And the eunuch answering Philip said, "I ask you, about whom does the prophet say this? About himself or about some other?" And Philip, opening his mouth and beginning at this scripture, brought to him the good news, Yeshua. And as they were going on the way, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, "Look, water. What hinders me from being immersed?" And Philip said, "If you believe with all your heart, it is permitted." And he answering said, "I believe the Son of Elohim to be Yeshua the Messiah." And he commanded the chariot to stand still, and both Philip and the eunuch went down into the water, and he immersed him. And when they came up out of the water, the Spirit of Yahweh caught Philip away, and the eunuch saw him no more, for he went his way rejoicing. Philip, however, was found at Ashdod, and passing through, he brought the good news in all the cities until he came to Caesarea. Chapter 9. But Shaul, still breathing threats and murder against the taught ones of the master, having come to the high priest, asked from him letters to the congregations of Damascus, so that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, to bring them bound to Jerusalem. And it came to be that as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly a light flashed around him from the heaven. And he fell to the ground, and heard a voice saying to him, "Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me?" And he said, "Who are you, Master?" And the Master said, "I am Yeshua, whom you persecute. It is hard for you to kick against the prods." Both trembling and being astonished, he said, "Master, what do you wish me to do?" And the Master said to him, "Arise and go into the city, and you shall be told what you have to do." And the men journeying with him stood speechless, hearing indeed the voice, but seeing no one. And Shaul rose from the ground, but when his eyes were opened, he saw no one. And leading him by the hand, they brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight, and did not eat nor drink. And there was at Damascus a certain taught one, by the name of Hananiah. And the Master said unto him, in a vision, Hananiah, and he said, Here I am, Master. And the master said to him, Arise and go to the street called Straight, and seek the house of Yehuda, for one called Shaul of Tarsus. For look, he is praying, and he has seen in a vision a man named Hananiah coming in and laying his hand on him, so as to see again. And Hananiah answered, Master, I have heard from many about this man, how many evils he did to your set-apart ones in Jerusalem. And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all those calling on your name. But the master said to him, Go, for he is a chosen vessel of mine to bear my name before nations, sovereigns, and the children of Israel. For I shall show him how much he has to suffer for my name. And Hananiah went away and went into the house, and laying his hands on him, he said, Brother Shaul, the master Yeshua, who appeared to you on the way as you came, has sent me, so that you might see again and be filled with the set-apart spirit. And immediately there fell from his eyes as it were scales, and he received his sight, and rising up he was immersed. And having received food, he was strengthened. And Shaul was with the taught ones at Damascus some days, and immediately he proclaimed the Messiah in the congregations, that he is the Son of Elohim. And all who heard were amazed, and said, Is this not he who destroyed those calling on this name in Jerusalem, and has come here for this, to take them bound to the chief priests? But Shaul kept increasing in strength, and was confounding the Yehudim who dwelt in Damascus, proving that this is the Messiah. And after many days had elapsed, the Yehudim plotted to kill him. But their plot became known to Shaul, and they were watching the gates day and night to kill him. But taking him by night, the taught ones let him down through the wall, lowering him in a basket. And having arrived at Jerusalem, Shaul tried to join the taught ones, but they were all afraid of him, not believing that he was a taught one. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the emissaries, and told them how he had seen the master on the way, and that he had spoken to him, and how he was speaking boldly at Damascus in the name of Yeshua. He was with them at Jerusalem, coming in and going out, and speaking boldly in the name of Master Yeshua, and disputed with the Hellenists, but they undertook to kill him. And when the brothers learned of this, they brought him down to Caesarea, and sent him out to Tarsus. Then indeed the assemblies throughout all Yehuda and Galilee and Shomaron had peace, and they were built up, and walking in the fear of Yahweh, and in the encouragement of the set-apart spirit, they were being increased. And it came to be, as Kepha was passing through all places, that he also came down to the set-apart ones who were dwelling at Lod. And there he found a certain man named Ananias, who had been bedridden for 8 years, being paralytic. And Kepha said to him, Ananias, Yeshua the Messiah heals you. Rise up and make your bed. And immediately he rose up, and all those dwelling at Lod and Sharon saw him, and did turn to the master. In Yaffo there was a certain taught one named Tabitha, which means Dorcas. This woman was filled with good works and kind deeds which she did. And it came to be in those days that she became sick and died, and having washed her, they laid her in an upper room. And Lod, being near to Yaffo, and the taught ones having heard that Kepha was there, they sent 2 men to him, urging him not to delay in coming to them. And having risen up, Kepha went with them. And when he arrived, they brought him to the upper room, and all the widows stood beside him weeping, showing the inner garments and outer garments which Dorcas had made while she was with them. But Kepha sent them all out, and knelt down and prayed, and turned to the body, and said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and seeing Kepha, she sat up. And giving her his hand, he lifted her up, and calling the set-apart ones and widows, he presented her alive. And it became known throughout all the Yaffo, and many believed on the Master. And it came to be that he stayed for many days at Yaffo with Shimon, a leather tanner. Chapter 10. Now there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a captain of what was called the Italian regiment, dedicated and fearing Elohim with all his household, doing many kind deeds to the people and praying to Elohim always. He clearly saw in a vision about the 9th hour of the day a messenger of Elohim coming to him and saying to him, Cornelius. And looking intently at him and becoming afraid, he said, What is it, Master? And he said to him, Your prayers and your kind deeds have come up for a remembrance before Elohim. And now send men to Yaffo, and send for Shimon, who is also called Kepha. He is staying with Shimon, a leather tanner, whose house is by the sea. And when the messenger who spoke to him went away, Cornelius called 2 of his household servants and a dedicated soldier from among those who waited on him continually. And having explained to them all, he sent them to Yaffo. And the next day they were on their way, and approaching the city, Kepha went up on the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became hungry and wished to eat. But while they were preparing, he fell into a trance, and he saw the heaven open, and a certain vessel like a great sheet, bound at the 4 corners, descending to him and let down to the earth, in which were all kinds of 4-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping creatures, and the birds of the heavens. And a voice came to him, Rise up, Kepha, slay and eat. But Kepha said, Not at all, Master, because I have never eaten whatever is common or unclean. And a voice came to him again a second time, What Elohim has cleansed you do not consider common. And this took place 3 times, and the vessel was taken back to the heaven. While Kepha was doubting within himself about what the vision might mean, look, the men who had been sent from Cornelius, having asked for the house of Shimon, stood at the gate, and calling out, they inquired whether Shimon, also known as Kepha, was staying there. And as Kepha was thinking about the vision, the Spirit said to him, See, 3 men seek you. But rise up, go down, and go with them, not doubting at all, for I have sent them. So Kepha went down to the men who had been sent to him from Cornelius, and said, Look, I am the one you seek. Why have you come? And they said, Cornelius the captain, a righteous man, and one who fears Elohim, and well spoken of by the entire nation of the Yehudim, was instructed by the set-apart messenger to send for you to his house, and to hear words from you. So inviting them in, the household them, and he housed them, and on the next day Kepha went away with them, and some brothers from Yaffo went with him. And the following day they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius was waiting for them, having called together his relatives and close friends. And it came to be that when Kepha entered, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and bowed before him. But Kepha raised him up, saying, Stand up, I myself am also a man. And talking with him, he went in and found many who had come together. And he said to them, You know that a Yehudi man is not allowed to associate with or go to one of another race. But Elohim has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean. That is why I came without hesitation when I was sent for. So I ask, Why have you sent for me? And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour. And at the 9th hour I prayed in my house, and see, a man stood before me in shining garments, and said, Cornelius, your prayer has been answered, and your kind deeds were remembered before Elohim. Now send to Yaffo, and call Shimon here, who is also called Kepha. He is staying in the house of Shimon the leather tanner by the sea. When he comes, he shall speak to you. So I sent to you immediately, and you have done well to come. And now we are all present before Elohim to hear all that you have been commanded by Elohim. And opening his mouth, Kepha said, Truly I see that Elohim shows no partiality, but in every nation he who fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. He sent the word to the children of Israel, bringing the good news. Peace through Yeshua Messiah. He is master of all. And you know that word came to be throughout all Yehuda, beginning from Galil after the immersion with Yohanan proclaimed how Elohim did anoint Yeshua of Nazareth with a set-apart spirit and with power, who went about doing good and healing all who were oppressed by the devil, for Elohim was with him. And we are witnesses of all he did, both in the country of the Yehudim and in Jerusalem, whom they even killed by hanging on a timber. Elohim raised up this one on the third day and let him be seen, not to all the people, but to witnesses, those having been chosen before by Elohim, to us who ate and drank with him after he arose from the dead. And he commanded us to proclaim to the people and to witness that he is who was appointed by Elohim to be judge of the living and the dead. To this one all the prophets bear witness, that through his name everyone believing in him does receive forgiveness of sins. While Kepha was still speaking these words, the set-apart spirit fell upon all those hearing the word. And those of the circumcision who believed were astonished, as many as came with Kepha, because the gift of the set-apart spirit had been poured out on the nations also. For they were hearing them speaking with tongues and extolling Elohim. Then Kepha answered, Is anyone able to forbid water, that these should not be immersed who have received the set-apart spirit, even as also we. And he commanded them to be immersed in the name of Yeshua Messiah. Then they asked him to remain a few days. Shalom.